All right. Hey, everybody. I am live here with Anna. Is that the echo again? Anna Paulich and Maleen Avery. And together they make up Rebel Nutrition. And they have a program called the Diet Killer, which I actually just completed a few weeks ago. And when I first met these two, they were introduced to me by my business coach, oddly enough. He knows everybody under the sun, I think.
Yeah.
Um, I was really interested in what they were doing because I was already kind of off the grid of doctors, going to functional medicine doctors. And what they teach and know is even different than what a functional medicine doctor will teach you. So I learned a lot from them. And if you are, I think I mentioned this in my intro post, if you are somebody who is just married to the idea of the food pyramid, what they have to say will probably blow your mind, um, because it's nowhere near that kind of teaching. But they have some great info, and actually helped me get over the hump years long struggle of trying to lose weight, and I finally am, and I'm really healthy now from what they taught me to do. So I'm excited to have them here with me today so they can share their info with you. And I know they are right in the middle of launching their program again. So if there's anybody out there that gets really excited by this, like I did, you can go through it too.
Yes.
So, yeah, I am going to turn it over. We didn't discuss who was going to talk first. But the first question I have for both of you is what led you to doing this research and learning the things that you teach here?
Yeah. So I think we both had a bit of a different journey. For myself, I always, for the most part, considered myself healthy. Maybe it was like a 60-40 split. So I think I was more of like a binge restrictor type eater where I would, punish myself for eating bad and then eat real bad again and just go in circles like that. But that led me to some health issues. And um, mainly it was infertility that led me down this path to, discover the science behind all of the stuff we teach in the Diet Killer. But I ended up in a clinic, and the physician there had said to me, like, we can do a lot of things on the medical side. We can prescribe these drugs. We can do IVF, but I highly suggest that you change your diet to become more insulin sensitive, so that if we do IVF, that you have a higher chance of getting pregnant. And I was like, huh? Like, but I go to boot camp 5 days a week, and I'm mostly watching what I eat. So I didn't really understand where he was going, but I wanted to understand because I love learning new things. So I went down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out all of that. And I was my N equals one experiment. And it was amazing, the changes that I saw in myself. I suffered from thyroid disease, infertility. I was overweight the majority of my life, and everything I did, like I said, boot camp, eating healthy most of the time, it just didn't seem to be working. And I would watch other people like shovel down pizza and burgers and French fries, and they were thin. And I thought, well, what the heck, right? So after I discovered all that I discovered, I went on to lose over 60 pounds and keep it off. Now, it was funny. I was trying to calculate with Maleen the other day, because people say, oh, it's not sustainable. Her, diets aren't sustainable. I'm like, well, it's not a diet because it's been like eight years, maybe,
Yeah,
yeah, around there. So, yeah, so it was really my own health that made me look into this.
that's, excuse me. That's funny that you said how it's a diet because the other day I ate some bread because I was feeling, I had a really bad like cramp in the night and whatever. I asked you guys about it. but I thought maybe I should have a piece of toast with my breakfast. So I did, and I had heartburn, like not instantly, but within an hour. And I told my husband that, oh, I ate bread today, so I had heartburn. And he said, oh, that's terrible. So that means you have to give up bread forever. I would never want to do that. And I definitely thought the same thing at first. And now it's not anywhere near as big of a deal because the consequence of bread for me is much worse
Yeah.
than the
And
reward.
and it's definitely different for everyone, right? And I think the key is like removing some of those inflammatory foods and reintroducing them. And then you're like, oh my gosh, that joint pain that I always had, that was from that food, right? And you think, oh, I'm just getting older, or, and prime example, I know what my husband has eaten based on how much he's burping and holding his chest, because I'm like, that's funny, what did you eat today? And he's like, why? And I'm like, because what I tell you to eat doesn't do that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I didn't mention at the beginning either of your credentials, but you're a nutritionist. And were you that already when you were going through your IVF journey, or did that prompt you to do that?
Yeah, so I had a Bachelor of Science in Human Biology. I also had another diploma in Chemical and Biosciences Technology. So I was well versed in the human body, but I obviously, again, in human biology, you don't learn a lot about nutrition. So I really wanted to dive deeper into that. So I went on to get certified as a nutritionist.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
To have that, So I'm super interested in it too, but I hate school. So I just ask you guys questions.
Yeah, that works.
So, Maleen, what was your backstory with all of this?
Yeah, so I was I was an overweight doctor. I was a physician practicing in sports medicine. Am I echoing?
A little bit. There's some feedback.
Let me adjust my mic a bit, or I'll just take out this mic.
You're not there anymore.
No.
How's that?
Yeah, it's just got some feedback at the end.
Testing.
That's better.
Better?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was a sports medicine physician, practicing that for 10 years, and I was overweight, which is really disappointing. And I felt like the biggest fraud and hypocrite, because here I am trying to tell people how to live a healthy life, and I can't get it together myself. And it came to a head when people would congratulate me on my pregnancy, except I'd been pregnant 8 years earlier. And so it was super embarrassing, and I was struggling because I was doing everything I was taught, and we are not really taught a lot, but I was cutting my calories. I was on the treadmill a couple of hours in the morning before I went to work, and nothing was working. And I was tired all the time, right? So I'd go to work, I'd see all these patients, I'd come home, and I just didn't have the energy to spend with my kid. So it was really frustrating. I came across, turning nutrition on its head, getting rid of that food pyramid, and looking into low carb as a way of kind of treating the root cause of overweight and obesity. And I started using it on myself, and somehow the weight came off, and I was astounded. So then I started using it on my patients because it also has some anti-inflammatory effects. Now I'm seeing these people with chronic, I'm talking like decades of low back pain and knee pain and hip pain. And it's just like you tell them to exercise, but they can't because they're in so much pain. So I tweaked their nutrition. The pain went away. I'm talking decades of pain. And then the side effect was that they would lose like significant amounts of weight. I had one guy who was in his like 70s who lost 100 pounds, came off of a bunch of medications. And I'm like, man, this is stronger than any drug I'm prescribing. So after that, I was sold. And then I went got some additional training in obesity medicine, and that's where I find myself today.
That's awesome. I know. So I've mentioned a few times that the things that you teach are pretty different. And when I came to you, I was right in the middle of doing the elimination diet from prescribed by a functional medicine doctor, which was absolutely the most atrocious thing I have ever done. And I was afraid, well, what if I get in this program and it's just like this, where I have this list of like 18 foods I can eat and 16 of them are gross. And excuse me. So it was interesting to me to get in there and find out that I could eat cheese and all these things and make this really good food and feel full, because on the elimination diet too, I was starving because I would try to eat um, whatever they prescribed, and it was just like, ugh, I, I'm so hungry, but this food is so horrible. I can only take enough bites to just take the edge off. And so what you taught there was just completely different than anything I have ever learned in my life. How often do you have people come to you and just say, no, there's no way that this can work, I'm not doing this?
I think, yeah, it's funny because I remember when you came to us and you showed me what you were eating, and I was like, never in my life. Like, I'd rather walk around with joint pain and be overweight than eat that stuff.
Yeah.
But like that's, I always say I am one of the world's pickiest eaters, and I love good food. And um, unfortunately, my son follows in my footsteps, but this was the one thing that I could stick to. Like, I didn't feel like I was on a diet because I was giving my body the nutrition it needs in a different way than I was used to. But yes, of course, it's scary. And I think most people, if you would agree, Maleen, who like they follow us on social media prior, and we post recipes once in a while, and they kind of see what we do recommend. So they usually come with some idea. And that's we review in our launch party, which is just started yesterday. I don't know what day it is, so right now. But we review some of that stuff, and that's where they can ask questions and find out more and see if it's right for them, because we don't want to force feed anyone, but I can guarantee you, if I'm eating it, anyone can eat it. So yeah.
The other thing that was really interesting to me about all of this is when you talk about being metabolically healthy. I had never heard that term before, ever. And when you're talking about seeing other people eating pizza and burgers, and I've lived my whole life like that, that I've been careful about what I ate and always ate a lot of vegetables and always did this and always did that and always struggled with my weight. And I always knew people who didn't. And this kind of answered all of those questions. Um, I suspect that the majority of people don't know what metabolically healthy means either. Can you give an overview of that?
Yeah, and the unfortunate part of it is that 88% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy. And what that means is it's how your cells are processing energy, right? So we eat food, and that gets broken down into the gut, into to glucose or amino acids or fatty acids, and then somehow we convert that with a series of biochemical and hormonal reactions at a cellular level into usable energy. There's some of people who can eat anything and they just burn it, efficient fuel source, right? But then there's some of us, myself and Anna included, at our start of the journey, where we couldn't process certain foods, and those culprits tend to be the highly refined processed carbohydrate type foods. And so we would be the type of people to walk by a cupcake and automatically gain 5 pounds. It's because our bodies were not efficient at processing carbs for energy.
Yeah, and that so going through this process then fixes that problem.
Yeah, what our goal is to make you metabolically flexible. That means you can use glucose as fuel, you can use fat as fuel, you can use ketones as fuel. Anything that's, available, you can use it efficiently. So many of us, our diets are just, fraught with carbs, right? It's the grains that are at the bottom of the pyramid, right? So we eat a ton of those, and all we can do is really run on glucose, sugar for energy. But sugar, as you know, is a fast acting fuel source. So you constantly have to replenish it. You're always hungry, like 2 hours after you eat a meal, right? And that's where that eat 6 meals a day comes in. You have to constantly feed yourself to have that energy. Otherwise, you get that slump in the afternoon, that energy crash, right? And we're so, used to using glucose as fuel, we forget how to use fat as fuel. So we have this endless amount of energy stored as body fat, but we're not able to tap into that. So we have to switch fuel sources, right? We have to stop using sugar as fuel so we can be able to use fat as fuel. And fat is a wonderful energy source. Like you could run a marathon just on body fat. You don't have to be taking those, sugar packets throughout your race and things like that. So it's a steady, slow burning fuel, sustainable fuel.
And some of us have more than others. For now, anyway. That was another thing that really blew my mind, was looking at how much sugar was in everything. Um, and of course, like with everything else, since I've learned that, then I hear about it other places. And I just saw a post the other day from somebody else that I follow that does the nutrition stuff, and they said the biggest fraud foods of all time, and listed on there was skim milk. Um, that was definitely one of milk was very hard for me to get away from, because it was one of my very favorite things to drink, and it just blew my mind that something like skim milk would not be healthy.
Yeah. Or who wants to eat low fat cheese? Like, seriously, whoever's out there that is eating low fat cheese and likes it, when it doesn't melt on things, like that drives me insane. And I
Right.
did that for years. And it like, you know, you have to kind of look at that stuff. Like there's fat in cheese. Now we're processing it to remove that, right? Or the milk, we're removing the fat so we can add in sugar. It's so bizarre. And as kids, we ate full fat sour cream, full fat milk, full fat cheese, full fat everything. And you know what? We weren't snacking all day long. We were outside playing with our friends and enjoying life. But now our whole life revolves around what we're going to eat next in an hour.
Right.
So.
And that has always, ever since I had my son, it would drive me crazy. Like, well, we can't go anywhere for more than an hour or two without a bag full of snacks. And that's so annoying.
Yeah.
And I've now changed, not anything necessarily that he eats, but definitely, oh, if you're hungry, let's just make you a meal. I don't care if it's 3:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
You need to just eat a meal and not have 14 different snacks until you're not hungry anymore. And I've even kind of started doing it with the
cats. Yeah, whole family's on board.
They're not a good example though, because they would just eat all day nonstop.
Yeah, totally.
Hey, there's Manny hopped on with us.
Hey, Manny.
Hello.
Funny about Manny, I was looking through some posts for something, trying to find something that I wrote, and I saw that he commented when you were doing the launch party when I joined you on something, and one of you said to him, "Hey, if you have any mom friends that are interested, let us know." And he replied like, "Oh, haha, like I have mom friends," and then he sent me to you.
Yeah.
So you never know. Can you guys? So I already know very well how it works, but can you talk about how you do your diet killer program when somebody joins it with you?
Do you want me to answer?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So like the kind of logistics of it, how it works, is that?
Just what you. what you go through if somebody were interested in this and struggling and they signed up to the program, what would they expect to do?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, right now we just started our launch party. So that runs for a couple of weeks where, people can join us in a private Facebook group. So if anyone was interested, they can find that link on our social media as well. But that's where we kind of uncover a lot of the information about the program. We have some really great freebies, as you know, that you could use right away, some things to think about. We work a lot with mindset and, reprogramming that old operating system, because a lot of that is why we fall back into old habits. So we can nail the nutrition, but, something in the back of our brain sends us, back to our old ways. So it's a 12-week program. It runs in 3 phases. The first phase is really, managing hunger and cravings, trying to get that under control, really dialing in that nutrition. And then we go into interweave a lot of the mindset, what we call neuronutrition, in with the nutrition. So the first 4 weeks is really important to dial that in and understand why, and just seeing those, like a lot of people will see, scale victories, and, I could go on, for hours about the scale and how evil it is, but people fail to see the non-scale victories. And that's really the initial part of the program is, getting people to uncover those and healing at a cellular level, right? Becoming metabolically healthy so that the future is effortless. So anything to add, Maleen, that I missed?
Yeah, and I think, when I was practicing clinical medicine, I would tell people to do stuff and then let them go on their way, and I would assume that they were doing it. But in coaching, it's totally different, because we are like with you 24/7, looking at everything you're eating. It's like I'm in your house with you and telling you, like, oh, what are you eating?
Yeah.
There's a lot of accountability. There's motivation. I think it just works beautifully in a group setting with women who are going through the same journey. And with us holding your hand, we've been there, right? We've been through the same process as you guys. So I love it.
Yeah.
And I hate to, I didn't mean to turn this into like an entire testimonial, but I just can't rave about it enough. And I know so many people that would be helped by it, but it's something that you don't want to approach somebody and say, hey, I think that you would want to do this, because it's almost insulting.
Yeah.
But I can say for myself doing it, not only am I losing weight now finally, but I have some chronic issues in my back with arthritis and degenerative disc disease in my spine, and an issue with my foot that was ongoing for months. And I haven't had any pain from any of those things since I started this. And those were the first things that I noticed.
Yeah.
I think one of the most difficult parts for me was being patient, because it's like, okay, I'm not eating bread anymore, which I loved. And I'm not eating, I'm not drinking milk, I'm not doing this, and I'm not seeing any movement on the scale. What's the deal? And, that's hard to do. But when
Yeah.
you think about how many years that you probably were eating the wrong things, then it's a gradual gain and a gradual lose also.
Yeah. And we live in a society where we want instant gratification from everything we do, right? You can jump on social media and there's information at your fingertips. We just want it quickly, but I think, yeah, that patience, and everyone's different, right? That's the thing is, your journey will be different from someone else's journey based on, your health history. And it's easy to compare, right? Like you see Kate Middleton walk out of the hospital and she looks like she didn't give birth, right? And you're like,
Yeah.
well, what the heck? And then you're like, how come that didn't happen to me? I'm still carrying around my baby belly, or, and
Right.
and then you start to like go on this terrible downward spiral. But it's just patience. patience is really the key word. And if you get the right information and implement the right steps to get there, then, like I said, the rest of your life will be effortless. Like Maleen says it, we don't want you to come back to us. We want to give you all the tools. So no matter what situation, and Allison, you had many situations that you were in. You were traveling this summer, you were on vacation, you were in theme parks, like,
Yeah.
and that is actually the best time to enlist coaching, you know, because we always say, oh, I'll hire a coach when my life is, you know, calms down. It's just too busy with the kids. No, that's the best time to hire a coach, right? When things are crazy, because you have someone supporting you all of the time. When life is calm, well, what the heck? You just eat the same things over and over. But like you were like, hey, I'm going here. And I was like, please take me with you. And, you know, like just those things where we can navigate, you know, give you a list of things that would be the lesser of two evils to eat, right? And still stay on track. So,
Well, I think this will always stick out in my mind going to Adventureland and being in the water park area, and it was lunchtime and everyone's starving because we've been swimming, and they're getting like corn dogs and nachos and all this stuff. And I'm like, I'll get a double cheeseburger with no bun, and feeling all sad, like, oh, I have to sit here and eat this. But then I ate it, and instead of feeling awful the rest of the afternoon, like I normally would have had I eaten a corn dog and like I needed a nap and whatever, I felt great, and my energy stayed up all day. It was, I mean, that part of it is almost unbelievable. You just have to experience it.
yeah, I think that's, you know, sometimes I ask myself, like, what will I feel like in an hour or 3 hours after I eat this? Like, I'm holding it in my hand, right? What's that going to make me feel like? And you know what? Sometimes I'm like, oh, it's going to make me feel like crap, but here I go, right? And then,
Right.
you know, it just, that it happens, and we're human, and it's, you know, we're not 100% perfect, but it's just making those better choices more often than not, and giving your body a chance to heal. So when you do have that corn dog, your body knows how to burn through it and switch back to burning fat.
hmm the other thing that is probably coming up, I bet, in people's minds right now is the holidays are coming up, and I want to have cookies, and I want this, and I want that. And I can tell you for the last month, I love pumpkin. All things. I don't. I don't drink coffee, so I'm not a PSL person. But pumpkin bread, pumpkin muffins, give me all the pumpkin. And so I have now these recipes that you gave me for pumpkin bread that isn't full of 8 pounds of sugar, and it's gotten me through this season of being surrounded by sugary pumpkin stuff because I know, oh, I've got my own pumpkin bread at home that tastes awesome,
Yeah.
and it's not going to give me heartburn, and it's not going to make me feel like crap
Yeah.
when I eat it. And then Thanksgiving for me, you guys just had it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then ours is coming up. I love Thanksgiving dinner, and I was talking about that with my husband, and he said, "Well, he does the cooking because he's a chef," and he said, "I don't even want to make Thanksgiving if it has to be all special." And I said, "It doesn't. I have, turkey is fine, obviously, and I have all these other recipes they gave me,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to be great. We can still just do it like normal and not have to be some kind of pariah that's on a weird restrictive diet all the time."
Yeah. We just had Thanksgiving, and I love turkey. And yeah, I made like a low carb. I didn't make it. I lied. I bought it. I imagine I make it, but I actually buy it. But there's a lady who has a bakery here, and she made a pumpkin pie. It's so delicious, you know. So like, you're still treating yourself with stuff. I had that spaghetti squash au gratin. I don't know if you tried my recipe. That's like my claim to fame. I love it. So like different sides that you have that are still really enjoyable, right?
Yeah.
And actually everyone at dinner that I brought that to asked me for the recipe. So instead of eating potatoes, they decided to go with that, right? So that says something.
Mhm.
That does say something. I'm gonna have to try that. I don't think I've made that one yet.
Yeah, it tastes like pierogies in a casserole dish.
Yum.
Good.
So the other big issue that made this be so really life changing to me is that I read a study, and I think it was at the tail end, and I told you guys about it, that a large percentage of the people that have been dying from COVID have been insulin resistant, which is what I was. And I went through all last year, not, I mean, I followed the rules and I wasn't irresponsible, but I really wasn't that worried about COVID because I thought, well, if I get it, I'm sure I'll be fine. I'm pretty healthy. I work out. And come, based on this study, it kind of made me a little scared after the fact and thought, wow, if I had gotten it, I probably would have been in bad shape because I had insulin resistance and I wasn't metabolically healthy. And no doctor up until the functional doctor even then had ever mentioned that because they don't test it.
Yeah.
So I felt like not only was this life changing for me to make me happier and look better in my clothes and boost my self esteem, but also, with this virus going around, I now feel like I'm much more prepared if I should get it, which, I have my own opinions on. I could say it's probably not super controversial. I feel like everybody's going to have it at one point or another. I mean,
Yeah, and I think it like just the overall message there is metabolic health is so important and it's not something that's measured, right? So whether it's for fertility, for thyroid disease, for PCOS, for diabetes, for immunity, right? Like there are so many reasons why there should be a focus on metabolic health. So
yeah,
many reasons.
yeah, just you're right, just in general, but it just made me think of COVID because it's so dominating the news. But
Yeah.
um, I mean, the study I read suggested that, well, a lot of people don't even know they have this. So these seemingly healthy people that are getting it and not doing well, and it's a big mystery that this might a lot of times be the culprit.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm all about, doing anything preventative that I
Yeah.
can. So this is really, I just wish that everybody I see that is struggling like I was with weight and struggling with working out and doing this and I'm balancing my macros and I'm doing this, I'm doing this, and I'm still not seeing any results. I wish that everybody knew that this was out there and an option for them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It doesn't have to be complicated. We try to simplify it as much as possible. And like you're with us for 12 weeks, but we want to kind of download everything into you so you can take this and go and live forever.
And not be starving and not be running on the treadmill for an hour every day and going to boot camp and counting calories. Right?
Yeah, I never was a fan of counting calories at all.
Yeah.
But
Or points or whatever, counting. Oh, it's crazy. The stuff
well,
we do.
but yeah, all the diety things. I did one stint in Weight Watchers when I was in my early 20s, I think, and it worked very well for me. But I was laughing thinking back on it because every morning for breakfast I had two like light Pop Tarts and a Diet Pepsi, and that fit right into my points plan, and I lost weight eating that. And now I'm sure if I ate that for breakfast every day, it would not work.
Yeah. Yeah.
But a lot
Over
of that,
time things change, right? Like that's those little choices you make throughout life that like damage your metabolic health that you need to recover from after. So it's interesting for sure.
yeah, and you know, if you had asked me, I would have honestly said, I think I'm a pretty healthy eater before this, because based on what I had been taught my entire life, I was. I was
Yeah.
under the calorie amount for the day. I had my macros balanced, not every day, but most of the time, fairly, you know, good, like they say you should. And come to find out that was a very unhealthy way of eating, because I was eating quite a bit of bread and milk all the time, all these things with a ton of sugar in them.
Yeah. It's
How what is a good way for people to be able to look at labels and tell that something that they're buying is really sugary? That's one of the mysterious type of things that I still feel when I look at labels.
Yeah, I think, this is a thorn in my side. But one of the things on labels or in marketing is you see people say, well, it only has 3 grams of sugar, right? And so the label is broken out. You have total carbohydrates, you have fiber, and then sugar. But carbohydrates are sugar. They turn to sugar. So people look at only sugar, and my dad does this all the time, and he's not on Facebook or social media, so he won't hear me talking about him. But he was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and then I would be like, oh my gosh, why are you eating that? I had your nutrition dialed in. And he'd be like, well, look, it says it only has 3 grams of sugar. I'm like, you're not looking at sugar. You have to look at total carbohydrates. That is the sneaky thing, right? In marketing, no sugar added, or, well, there's no sugar added, but how much sugar was there to begin with, right?
Right.
So or light fruit juices. We got that all the time, and it's like, well, light doesn't mean no sugar, right? So many things. Or just because you don't put sugar in your coffee, but you're eating, a 5-pound bag of potatoes every day, that's still sugar, right? So I think, looking at total carbohydrates on a label is very important. And also the ingredients, you have to look at the ingredients, and ideally eat foods without a label.
Yeah. Yep. My sister was watching and commented about processed food. Uh, and her son has been battling some autoimmune issues, and they're treating it a lot with diet. And I don't think he eats any processed food. And in fact, a lot of things I'm eating are similar to what he can eat. So we're like food buddies now.
Yeah.
Like functions.
Yeah. It's processed foods, processed oils. That's a huge one. If you want to reduce inflammation, like right now, stop using canola oil and vegetable oils and incorporate, the healthier fats. So olive oil, avocado oil. Be careful of the blends. Now there's new marketing where they're like, have an avocado on the oil, but it's actually a blend of avocado and canola. So you pick it up and you're like, oh, I got this for a great price. And it's because it's filled with crap. So, that's the cheaper half of it. But so just inflammatory oils, huge.
Mm-hmm.
Margarine, like eat butter like we used to.
Yeah.
Margarine, oh my gosh, I did it too. I ate so much margarine.
I don't think I never got into the margarine thing, because my brother told me once that they did a study where they left a container of margarine open outside for like months, and no animals or bugs ever touched it.
Yeah.
They were not interested.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
It's not real food.
Yeah.
I had a friend one time that like went up against her daughter's school system, because they were still teaching them in health class that margarine was healthier than butter. And this was like 5-ish years ago. Crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot of doctors out there who still believe margarine is healthier than butter. Like I've butted heads with a lot of my colleagues on that.
Oh, that's really interesting.
A lot of misinformation even in the medical community, which is quite sad.
Well, I know I told you guys this story, but I had this one doctor that I had seen for years, and I was so frustrated. I was logging all of my food, all of my exercise, and I, showed up at my doctor's appointment with these notebooks, and I said, "Can you please tell me what I'm doing wrong, that I'm not losing any weight, and in fact I'm gaining weight?" And he said he didn't even look at what I brought, and I had told him some about what I was doing, and he said, "It's simple. Eat less and move more." I'm like, oh, that was when I went to a functional doctor.
Yeah.
Oh,
You're like,
man.
how do you have that many hours in a day to like move more than you already are? That's why I was like spending so much time at boot camp and then doing other things. And eventually you just tank your metabolism and
Mm-hmm.
you just, nothing you do. You could just stop eating and run all day and you wouldn't lose a pound.
Right. And in fact, a lot of times I see runners gain weight
Yeah.
because it's stressful.
Yeah.
Um, so, what is one piece of advice I get from each of you that you would give moms or women that are struggling and having this battle that they're fighting with being stuck in a weight loss journey?
I would say, aside from everything I've already said, is stop snacking. Stop eating 6 meals a day and just challenge your metabolism. If you are hungry, eat a meal. If you're not hungry, don't eat. But that snacking has to stop, and that will, like, so it's either you're fasting or you're feasting. You are giving your body a break, or you're having a meal.
Absolutely. And I think another tip for moms is you don't have to be running on the treadmill 2 hours a day. That's just increasing your cortisol, which is your stress hormone, and giving you stress fat. So relax a bit.
Yeah.
Those are two really good tips. Love
Thank
that.
you.
That was the cutting back on my exercise and eating a whole meal when I was hungry were probably two of the biggest changes that I made, actually.
Yeah, because even us watching you, like when you were exercising more, you were snacking more, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it
Yeah.
was that vicious cycle where,
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden you're like ravaging, but just really
Mm-hmm.
tuning into that and eating the right things so that doesn't happen as well is very important.
Yep. Awesome. Okay. Well, I will definitely post a link to your launch. You have a Facebook group, right, for the launch party?
Yeah.
I will get that link from you and post it in the comments of this video. So if anybody wants to join, that's a free group to join just to find out more about what it's all about.
Yeah.
If you're interested in joining the program, which I highly recommend if you're in a spot where you're stuck and just to increase your overall health, I could not recommend it more.
Yes. Awesome.
All right. Well, thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Sure. Have a great rest of your day and enjoy the rest of your week also.
Yes, you as well. Take
All right.
care.
Okay.